What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today is a video that I guess if we had a podcast it would be a podcast probably episode, but it's been almost a year, or it's been over a year. It's just been a year that we've been living on land after our boat life, and we have a lot to share about it. Basically, the lies of off-grid living, the things we didn't expect.
They're not necessarily lies. They're lies to us because we,
people lie.
It's portrayed a little differently, I'd say, or they definitely omit less glamorous parts of it. But this is GBU. This is good, bad, and ugly. So just like with the boat life, we're going to spill it to you, the things we love and the things that, it's hard for people to like.
Things we didn't expect, things we weren't prepared for, and also, things we do like. So let's start into it. To start it off, our property we have is about 8 acres of pretty rainforest-like property at different levels.
Yeah, it's basically wild jungle. It's a tier step down. There's 4 or 5 steps that goes down the property, ranging from about 900, right under 1,000 feet, to it goes down about to 800, 815, right in there somewhere. So we have about 200 feet of drop just on that short 8 acres. So there's a lot of grade that's hard to maintain because it's straight up and down. You can't just go out there with your little push mower and tear it up. You have to be like having a rope alpining down the cliffs to clear some of the land. So it's difficult, and with the rain, the rainforest, the wild jungle, it rains, gallons and gallons every single day. So it's a heavy growth environment for weeds, and it's hard. It's a lot to take care of.
Yeah, that's what we basically weren't prepared for. We thought 8 acres, we didn't think too far into that. Besides, with 8 acres, we could do all these things. We could have the solar farm, we could have a regular garden, we could have animals, we could have a house, we could have a cabin. That's basically as far as our thoughts went. And the reality is, just for 2 of us to maintain using more than 1 acre is a lot of work.
Yeah, even 1 acre is pretty good size. So basically what we thought was we could have 4 or 5 acres designated for the agriculture and stuff like that, and then have a little 2 acre buffer and then the house over here. So we're not, having goats right outside our bedroom window screaming and hollering all the time. So yeah, that was basically the concept there was, we'll have the acreage, and then we'll be able to utilize maybe 4 acres of it total, and then we'll just have 4 or 5 acres growing wild. But what you don't understand is when you clear out a little bit in the middle, that wild side wants to swallow the civilized side all the time. So that was a little more of a surprise, just having that much. I think we should have taken our advice like that we had on the boat. And usually with a boat, you want to go as small as you can possibly go. And we probably should have done that with the property as well, but we didn't. We went for the 50-foot catamaran of properties. And it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with.
So it's hard to maintain, on top of if you're trying to build the property up to be livable and usable. Basically, after you're building, you have to go and cut the grass. You have to cut back the weeds. So that's 1. And 2, it's way more expensive than I could have imagined. I didn't think that through. We thought of different things and prices. We did think of, obviously, money. We're not idiots. But some expenses you don't think of, like the driveway. That was a thing I didn't think of. I thought, just drive down on the dirt once you get a dirt road made. But that can't happen here because it's pretty much the rainforest and it's wet and your truck gets stuck. So we learned that one the hard way. And you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars just for a driveway.
It's the boat people. We thought we were doing rich boy stuff because we were out on sailboats, and sailboats has that bust out another 1,000. That's what boat stands for, break out another 1,000. But they got to make an acronym for land, because land ownership is the real pocket hitter. A boat is only 37 feet long. You can make that thing out of gold, and it's so finite that you can only spend so much money. Land would have to be lay another gnarly payment. No, gnarly deficit lamp. I don't know. Did I spell lamp? I don't know. What could land be?
I don't know. You're thinking on the spot, and I don't know. Maybe think about that later.
Okay, I'll keep wheeling it and dealing it.
But yeah, so there's unthought of expenses, and when you don't think of those on a big property, they're gonna cost a lot of money. So that was something that we learned.
Even the gravel road, like, it was such a shock too, because we were gonna make a concrete driveway down, and we had a guy come out and quote us, and kind of quote us on the low because he's a friend of mine. He's like, yeah, from there to there it'll be about 14,000, and I was like, whoa, $14,000, and then I was like, no, that's crazy. So then I started calling the gravel companies, and I was like, oh, how much is a truck of gravel? And they're like, yeah, a couple grand. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started doing the math. I said, oh, just to have a dirt road is going to be thousands of dollars just to even be able to get down on the property at all. So it was, land ownership is the real pocket hitter. The land gets you 24/7.
Real quick, I wanted to share our sponsor of this week's video, Beam. As we all know, Black Friday is right around the corner, and Beam is giving early access to up to 50% off site-wide. This is the only time you can get our favorite product, Dream, for 50% off.
Some of you may be wondering, what is Dream? Well, Dream helps you fall asleep and stay asleep with natural sleep supportive ingredients in the form of delicious hot chocolate. As some of you may or may not know, I'm a bit of a night owl, and when I lay down to go to sleep at night with all these projects, my mind explodes into thousands of pieces, and I'm always thinking, what's the next project? Or I'm doing research, and I can lose track of that, and I can stay up all night sometimes. And Dream has been helping me with that to kind of reset my sleep schedule. If I get a little out of control for a couple days and I'm going to bed well after midnight, I knock out one of these bad boys, get it sleep early, that way I can get up early the next day and be productive. The very first time I took Dream, I was able to fall asleep and stay asleep all night. This really helped me feel energized the next morning, and really helped with my work schedule and being productive. Not only is the brownie batter flavor delicious, but it has no added sugar and only 15 calories. And one serving costs less than a cup of coffee.
Beam even has limited time holiday flavors, white chocolate peppermint and gingerbread. Get them before they sell out. Shop early access to Beam's Black Friday sale by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code to get up to 50% off site-wide. Don't miss this limited time offer. No code needed.
So the next thing that, was a learning curve was the building of everything. And, you watch so much social media and you see, two people building 5-story houses out of just clay and bamboo, and you're like, oh, this will be very easy. But when you break down, foundational structure and stuff like that, it actually can get pretty complicated if you're wanting to build something, a little bit nicer and that's not going to fall over, especially when you don't know anything at all. You kind of just start completely from the bottom. And what I initially thought when I was on the boat, a year before we moved on the land, I was like, okay, well, it'll just be easy. You go to the big box store, you go rent a tractor from Home Depot for a couple days when you need it. You can easily get everything you need. And in the US, you can rent concrete pumps from your local box, hardware store. So you can get all of that stuff easily, and then it makes it a little bit, easier to do things and build things, and you can get Amazon the very next day. Out here, that is not the case whatsoever. Your Home Depots are pretty limited, and they're very far away as well. So the building in itself was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Lord. A leaf almost took us out. But yeah, the building was tough.
Yeah, with the Home Depot, which I don't know if you mentioned, is that not only are the Home Depots far, you can't rent big machines.
You can rent like a tamper, you can rent like a little trencher, little things you can rent.
Not big machines.
But big machines, concrete pumps, bigger mixers, like a trailer mixer. It's one of those things that ended up being a lot harder than I thought. I've worked construction in the U.S. before, and it's a lot easier. It's a big corporate, the U.S. is a well-oiled machine, and it can go. Out here in Puerto Rico, I'm learning that it's definitely a little bit harder to build out here. But it's, that's just one of the things that caught us off guard, because, when you watch people on social media building, and it looks really easy, and it looks like, oh, that'll just, they bring the dump truck down and they just dump it on your road and they make a perfect road in 5 minutes. When you have a, 30 to 40 degree grade drop, they can't do that with the dump truck anymore. So it's just little things that you didn't think about, that once you're met with the reality of it, building's a lot harder. So think about that long and hard before you think you're going to come build a whole house, because building a wall was hard enough.
The next thing that we were excited about when we bought this property that also was a little more surprising and unexpected was when we got animals. As you guys know, a lot of you, we rescued a lot of kittens, and when I saw those kittens in the bushes, I was thinking it's just like in the States. You rescue the cat, you bring it to the vet, they fix it for you right then and there, or like pretty young, and then you bring your cat home and everything's good and you saved it. That's not how it was here. We spent a ton of time going to different vets. We went to probably 3 different vets because they do it differently. They make you have to get some certain shots, then you got to take them back and then bring them back another time, and their appointments at the vet also don't work like you got your 8 o'clock appointment and they call you in at 8 o'clock. It's basically they give you an 8 o'clock appointment, you sit there all day and then eventually get called. So it takes all day. So not to complain too much, but we had to come back to the vet, and by the time they would allow us to even get the cats fixed, they were on the verge of
being able to have their own babies.
Yeah, like getting the male cats were getting the jowls and everything, which to me was bad. And now we do have some cats that can still spray a little bit and stuff like that, which I guess does happen, but
yeah, maybe it's just me not remembering how life was growing up in the States. But even as a young adult, you know, you'd go to the pound and a kitten would be not much bigger than your hand. It's already fixed with all of its shots and it's ready to go. For some reason here, they were acting like the cats wouldn't survive, being spayed and neutered. And, you know, they were like teenagers by the time it had to go through that. So
but maybe it's just the medical, but they made us get multiple different shots before we can even get them fixed on 2 separate trips. So it was a whole big event. And then the farm animals.
Yeah, the farm animals was another thing too. We thought about, you know, when we thought about getting goats and stuff, same thing. Very influenced by what we were seeing on the internet of like, oh, my vet comes over and helps me birth my calf. That's something that you can Google in Florida, and you can have 17 cow midwives pop right up, and you know there's 100 reviews on every single one. Here, that doesn't really happen as well. The culture around livestock that I've experienced, and this is in no way like a detriment, and I've heard this in the States as well. But the culture around it is like if you bring a sick chicken to the vet, they're like, yeah, it's a sick chicken, it's gonna die. Like you probably want that chicken to die so that those genetics don't keep going through your other animals. And the same, one of my chicken mentors and my goat mentor as well, something I never thought I'd say in my 39 years of life, my chicken mentor and my goat mentors, big shout out to Kat and Dana, they said, you know, it's hard, but it's kind of part of life, and you don't want animals that are more prone to getting sick and or weaker immune systems breeding over and over, because then it just becomes something you have to go with over and over. It's Darwinism 101, but for me personally, I like to swim against the current, and you know, I don't really like Darwinism so much.
But it's harder to get medicine here for the animals.
Yeah, yes,
There's
yeah,
not
you can't
tractor
just,
supplies
no.
and easily.
Yeah, luckily I had some
Medicines.
friends of the channel help me with some medicines and help me with some guidance as well. But still, when my chicken got sick, I had to run literally all over the entire island just to find something that's super readily available, or you could Amazon to your door the very next day. So being out here, that was a little bit harder. And that just the thing too with the animals is how sick they get. I never thought about that. You know, everything wants to kill your animals all the time. It's
death. We weren't prepared
the
for
death,
death
the micro,
on the
you know,
farm.
there's threats that you can see, dogs, you know, hawks, things that you obviously know about, but then even on a microscopic level, there's amoebas, there's parasites, things that are, you know, if your little baby chicks go out in the dirt and they eat the wrong piece of dirt, now they're backed up and their crop's full. And I have learned a lot, but that's the thing is the amount that you have to learn under the duress of, you know, an animal's life is in the balance at that time. It's a bit of a squeeze on you, and nothing transfers. What works for the chickens doesn't work for the goats. What works for the goats doesn't work for the cats. So you have to become like an expert in all these little pieces of the same thing. So it's kind of tough, and maybe that's why people are just like, yeah, if they die, let them die.
Yeah, but we aren't like that.
It just couldn't work for me. I'm slowly getting there. You know, if a baby chick doesn't hatch and it's still like fully formed, you know, I sit there and I hit him with the RIP to a real one, but then I bury him in the tomato patch like everybody else does, and you know, circle of life. We don't lose the chicken completely, but you know, that's one of the biggest things, is because you get really worried. When my goat got sick, one of my goats got diarrhea, so I'm out there learning that, and thank God I had someone to help me with the with how that works. But yeah, I mean, it's just not, it ain't big cute cuddle with your goats time. It's 99% of the time sticking a thermometer up your goats' butts, and then 8% time feeding them, and then maybe 1% is that fun goat jumping around nuzzling up against you. So yeah, animals, it's a rough one.
They're difficult. All right, the next thing that we really wanted to do was grow our own vegetables and gardening. Obviously, when COVID happened, a lot of people wanted to do that, and it became a craze. And we thought, okay, we'll have enough land, plenty of time to learn, and we'll start out just trying not to use any pesticides and fertilizers, see what we can do naturally, what we can get. And as some of you know, if you've watched the show, it hasn't gone to plan.
It has not gone to plan. It has been rough. You know, you hear up in arms about, you know, everyone that grows their own food. They're like, well, yeah, it's more expensive to grow your own food, which it absolutely is. It's pretty much double the price to do it yourself, or a minimum 30% or 30 to 50% increase to do it on your own, plus all the labor. But it's everyone says it's more expensive, but you know what goes in your food, you know what antibiotics it gets, you know what, you know, fertilizers, what pesticides are being used. And to me, that just meant like, oh, we're going to use less of those. What I didn't really hear was you just know what you're putting in and how much you're putting in, because to me, it seems impossible to have healthy animals in mass. You know, any like legitimate, you know, a family of 4 is going to eat 1,500 pounds of meat a year, and a couple, you know, let's say another 3,000 pounds of vegetables. So you're going to be having to grow a good amount, and without having pesticides, extremely difficult, without having antibiotics in your animals. They get super sick 24/7, and you have to really be on top of them, and then who knows how it affects the meat. So, you know, the professionals that give you all those GMOs and all that, you know, all that bad stuff, they probably just do a great job. And sadly, at the end of the day, you kind of have to end up doing that on your own. From what I've experienced, and even with other farmers that I've seen, they're like, yeah, you kind of got to use pesticides, and realistically the citrus oils and all that stuff.
There is natural fertilizer and stuff like that, but I truly believe that you could use them, but you would have to be a hawk on each and every plant every day.
Yeah,
all
because
day. Like that would have to be, gardening would have to be your one and only main life. You'd have to be lifting the leaves, making sure there's no bugs under each one, and if you have any size of garden, it's just not.
That's a lot of leaves to turn out. That's a whole bunch of leaves.
It's not gonna work out.
And and every leaf gets a different bug. You know, every tomatoes get a different bug, potatoes get a different bug.
Different fungus, and you're spraying it with 500 different natural sprays. It's just, it would consume your entire life.
They like different dirt. You know, lettuce wants a little bit of ash on it, but you know, the tomatoes.
And that's not even talking about the iguanas eating it.
The iguanas come to eat it. The birds are gonna fly up to, you know, at a little mulberry bush up there at the top, and when some berries come in, everything comes in with it. So it's pretty. We haven't had a ton of success doing it the all natural way. For some reason, I was silly and I was like, oh, it's the rainforest, it's the jungle. It has to be nutrient-rich soil. I'm right by a river. Everything's gonna grow there. And the only thing that really grows here is the 10 weeds that survive here, and they do a prolific job of being the only thing that survives here. So growing things has been. We
haven't given up, though.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed with my rose-colored glasses, saying I'm going to be the granola boy, and I'm going to be sitting around with my fresh goat milk, and my fresh-grown snap peas. And what have we grown thus far? A handful of cherry.
I got the overalls.
You got the overalls. I got the farmer's tan, but that's about all we've been getting. So, we grew some cherry tomatoes. Onion. We got some chickens. I'm gonna eat some of them black chickens when they come up the next time.
We do plan on hopefully getting meat chickens. That's a whole nother segment, though, saga in our lives, that when we get time.
Yeah, and the milk from the goats, that's another thing as well that has to be treated and doing all that stuff. Or, you know, you can be building natural with the bamboo, but you have to treat the bamboo, otherwise it gets eaten by the termites in about 5-6 months. So the natural, thinking you can be natural in today's world, it's impossible. For some reason, it just ain't working for us. But we're not giving up. Once we get that fence up and we can keep the iguanas out, then we'll be killing it.
Next thing is the fact that our property is basically a rainforest. We thought that was going to be pretty cool and exciting, tons of nature, trees, shade. It's going to be great, peaceful ambiance. And all of that is true. But the parts that we didn't 100% think through is how it's going to be raining every single day. I thought, a couple times a week here and there, but it rains almost, not every day, but almost every
It rains
almost
a lot.
every day. So if you're trying to build anything or do anything, it really adds up and takes a lot of time away.
Yeah, you get smoked with the weather here, and I didn't. We've only been here a year, so maybe this is just a rainy year. Things go cyclical that way, so some days it won't rain for 5 years, and then we'll be in a drought. And then when we first got to the Dominican, I think 5 years ago there was a pretty bad drought, so that might have happened in Puerto Rico as well. But boy, I'll tell you, we've been here for 365 days, and it has rained 340 of those, guaranteed. So that has been great, and there's nothing better than sitting on your porch when it's raining, unless you're staring at your concrete pad that you can't finish because no concrete trucks can get down here, or you're staring at your grass that you haven't been able to cut for 2-3 weeks because you literally cannot drive the lawnmower on the grade with the clay. You just can't even move it around. You swamp out the whole yard. So the grass is growing 4 or 5 inches every day. The rainforest was a little bit wild for that.
For our job and filming YouTube videos, it's definitely made it a lot harder. In our minds, moving from the boat to land, we're like, filming and all that stuff should be 10 times easier. And that was not what happened. It's a lot more breaks, and when it starts raining, it kind of goes for the rest of the day.
It doesn't really stop, and even if it does stop, everything's soaked. So you got to just go out and wade around your mud boots.
And your tools, you have to move
The
your
tools,
tools
you got to
back
put the
and
tools
forth,
in, put the
back
tools
and
out.
forth.
And even in the house, even in the trailer, with the humidity, the mold, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have some friends of the channel that were trying to paint the inside walls of their house, and they were like, yeah, you can't even paint the inside of your house because the humidity is so through the roof, the paint won't even stick and it comes out crazy patchy. So those are things that living in Florida, you don't even think about. You want to pour your driveway, you pour the driveway unless it's raining right then. If you want to paint your walls inside your house, you just go to Sherwin-Williams and paint your walls. Here it's almost like a different planet in a lot of ways, which is amazing. But the nature is great.
Yeah.
That being said, the other side of that coin is when you are done with work, the camera's put down, you come outside, you sit on your porch, you hear the water going by, you hear the birds tweeting. But this is one thing that'll probably get me in some hot water with my Puerto Ricans, is that the coqui frogs. They are awesome. That's great until it's 3 in the morning and one crawls in the crack of your window, and it's just like a smoke alarm going off for the next 4 hours.
There's been many nights Matt's gone out with a flashlight
Lord.
looking for the frogs.
Because coqui is like the mascot of Puerto Rico, if you're unfamiliar, and they're really cool. They're on the stickers, and they are awesome. Like when you go out, if you come for a vacation and you hear the, you're like, oh, this is really, really exotic and fun. But when they are keeping you up all night, every night, till the end of nights, they can get a little crazy. So the coquis are going to drive you nuts. Just the overall, the tarantulas we saw.
Yeah, there's tarantulas.
Not
my favorite.
Tarantulas are cool, but they will come in your house. So that's something dealing with the scorpions, the giant centipedes. There's like a hammerhead slug or leech or worm that's pretty terrifying. You just think about him, curling up.
Ew, Matt, stop.
Up in somewhere. It could be awful.
Anyways,
But
continuing with the rainforest. With
rainforest
the
has
bamboo,
been,
we also had issues.
Yeah, because that's another thing. The bamboo, I was watching these these guys from Thailand building all these bamboo shacks and stuff, and I was like, oh man, there's so much bamboo on the property. This is going to be so great. I'm going to be able to build so much with this. And then when I first got here, there was some that I was cutting up that I was just pulling up stuff that had fallen down, and people were telling me in the comments, hey, you can't do that. That's illegal. You're going to get in trouble, blah, 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 in a nice way. But I did some research, and I was like, oh, I really can't cut down this bamboo. The bamboo is protected for whatever reason. So I was like, ooh, that's kind of a nightmare because it falls down all the time and you have to maintain it, but you can't really set up for a project. You got to, when it falls down, you have to cut it right then, and then you have to treat it pretty quickly. Otherwise, the bugs get in it and the starches shrink into the wood, so you can't get it. It's hard to get enough for a whole project unless you have the hurricane, when all of the bamboo fell down all at one time, and then you can clear it and harvest it. So that was one thing that kind of caught me off guard, was the laws. Certain things you are allowed to do and certain things you are not allowed to do that I had kind of planned on doing. So that threw me for a loop as well. One of the hardest things for us as well, because we were super free-spirited coming into this, was being tied down. Having a property ties you down a lot harder than a boat. Obviously a boat, you're just tied down by the anchor and you can go and do as you please, and it's a lot less, it's a lot easier just to throw that thing in a marina, pay a guy to check on it for you, and then fly, go wherever you want. With the animals, the farm, the vegetables, even just the house being out here, if we were to leave for 2-3 weeks and come back, we might not even have access to the house because of the amount of growth that would come over it. So the being tied down to land, we have been to the U.S. more to visit family, and obviously we got married, so we were flying back and forth quite a bit. But it was at our own expense. We had to pay staff to come and help us. We probably could try to be like cult leaders and get people to come do it for free whenever you do a YouTube and you have a lot of friends of the channel.
We don't do that.
It's an easy way. I've seen people like, oh yeah, this guy comes in his private plane and flies me somewhere, or people babysit my house just because, they love the channel or they'll watch my boat. We try to stay away from that as much as we can. I don't want someone to have to come, work for me just because they feel like they owe me something because they watch the TVs and stuff. So I don't, we don't get super into that. We're pretty private people that way. People got nannies and all sorts of things going on. We just try to stick as much as we can to ourselves. So the being tied down in the land has been a little bit of a
we planned on
shock.
being able to go on the boat. If you guys have seen the earlier episodes when we first bought the property, our whole plan was to be able to still go on the boat and then come back. And some people laughed in our faces, and we're like, why are they laughing in our faces?
Why are you laughing in our face?
But now we understand. And the cats, we didn't plan on those also. So
even though
they really tie us down.
Yeah, I mean, we could just skin them all and do like a Cruella de
Matthew, don't even say that.
kind of thing. But we could do it. It's just an option on the table. We're not going to. But yeah, the being tied down was a little bit of a shock. So it's just one of those things you want to... Whoa. Chickens went nuts. It's one of those things you want to look out for. I know a lot of our fans here are from sailing channel stuff, and I think we've noticed like a mass exodus recently of tons of channels buying land and making that transition from sailing to land life. And I think it was Free Range Sailing, then it was us. So basically we copied Free Range Sailing, and now everyone's copying us because we make it look so much fun and so easy.
Do we?
For all you guys thinking about,
I don't know if we do make it look fun.
Cherish it. Cherish the boat life. But yeah, if you're thinking about getting land, just maybe notice these things that we've noticed and learn from our mistakes.
On YouTube videos, on a lot of building, homestead type things seem to go a lot faster in the YouTube magic production.
It was the same thing.
Nothing goes that fast.
It was
here at least. Maybe in different states.
It's probably a nightmare altogether. It's probably just people maybe better at managing their time than we are. I don't know. But it's it was the same thing in sailing, and that was always our mission statement with our channel. Sailing was always perfect sunsets and sundowners and beautiful beaches, and we said, after we lived on the boat for a couple of years prior to even starting the YouTube, we said, this is not anything near to that, and it's a complicated thing. So it's the same thing with the land. All you see online is the fluffy goats, the fresh fruit,
big gardens,
big beautiful
lush
gardens,
vegetables.
The tweets of the birds in the background. They don't see the the goat enemas and the giving them shots and the burying your cat that was attacked and mauled by the wild dogs and having to fight mongooses off, and hawks flying into your chicken coop trying to chicken soup your baby peeps. So there's a lot of insanity, and then living off grid as well. It's not as glamorous either. Recently, for the last year, we've been on a generator, a 3,000 watt generator. So laundry is almost impossible to do on that thing. With the humidity, it's hard to hang clothes on a line. It's just a big...
The washer works, but the
dryer is a nightmare. So it's, the generator, you only want to run it half the time. So therefore, we're not doing AC. I have to get up in the middle of the night just to turn the generator either on or off so we can have a fan. That's a very big, hard thing because it's cyclical. Like it only has like a 6-hour cycle. So every 6 hours you got to do something with that. So you can
But
never.
we are getting batteries and solar. It's just
we're moving toward that. It's just that's another
taking
process.
a long time, and that is also very, very expensive.
Super expensive. People act like, oh, off grid, it's going to save me. Any sort of off grid system that's going to run a house is going to be $30,000, and that's off the off the ripper low end, $25,000 to $30,000. So you got to think, you know, if you're paying, let's say $300 a month, what is that? $300. 3,000 versus 3,600 a year. So you're looking at paying your light bill 10 years in advance all at one time. I guess there are people that finance solar things now, but I'm not getting those sort of offers. So off grid's a hard thing. You know, catching your rainwater and having to treat it, that's a hard thing in the cities. All the geniuses that know how to do that, they do that for you, and you just got to turn the knob. But when you got to go dig your water out of a hole or catch it in the rain or drive to the pump house and get it in 2 garbage cans and bring it back to the truck like we did when we were very first starting. So it was that's another hard thing as well, and that seems to be, at least in my experience, the things that everyone in the media leaves out. That, you know, problem solving is going to be 99% of your life when you do this, and you're going to get those little tiny glimpses of perfect, but they are perfect when they do happen.
But let's speak about, hopefully we didn't sound too negative when we're bringing up the truths and things we didn't expect. But we do like our property. This has been a crazy adventure that if one day we're not living here, I don't know how long we'll live here, what's in the future, but one day it's going to be just like the boat life. We're going to look back. It's going to be a wild adventure.
Oh no, the juice is worth the squeeze for sure. But you know, sometimes when you squeeze in that orange juice, the rind pops and it squirts you right in the eye with that rind acid.
Matthew.
So just be prepared. And I'm not negative. I've had a super fun, like enriching time doing it, and I love the cats, and that's great and all that stuff. But there were a few, you know, there's been more than several dozen sleepless nights and more than several dozen very frustrating days of trying to get things figured out and solved. And it's been a big learning curve, but overall it's forever changed who I am as a person, and hopefully for the better.
So hopefully this video helps some people out there, or if you're just curious, hopefully we answered some questions that maybe you're wondering about. And thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you next week. Bye.